Journalist and writer Mehdi Hasan sparking controversy for his comparison of the reactions to the war in Gaza to those of the Holocaust.
In a now deleted post on X, Hassan wrote, "One of the ways in which the Gaza genocide is worse than a lot of previous genocides, Rwanda, even the Holocaust, is that you didn't have Hutus or Nazis mocking the genocide after it was over. They were shunned, de-radicalized, and prosecuted." Some people felt that Hassan's tweet was downplaying the significance of the Holocaust. Free Press writer Eli Lake says equating the Shoah to Israel's defensive war against Hamas is something only an anti-Semitic scumbag would do. Hassan responded to Lake saying, "I didn't equate it. I said there was an aspect to it, ghouls like you mocking the victims. That's worse. I don't defend any genocides, whether Nazi, Hutu, or Israeli. You defend a genocide which makes you the ultimate scumbag is what he said, and history will remember you as a Riefenstahl." That's a reference to Leni Riefenstahl, a German filmmaker who made Nazi propaganda films in the 1930s.
Now, after receiving more backlash, Hassan eventually deleted his initial post. He clarified his argument in another post, saying in part, quote, "I was trying to clumsily make the point that Holocaust deniers are rightly condemned and ostracized in the West, while Gaza genocide deniers remain leading members of our political and media establishments. There was no offense meant to the Jewish community, and I abhor and condemn all genocides, unlike those pro-Israel politicians and journalists who defend or worse, deny the current Gaza genocide. Shame on them."
Yeah, it was a bad tweet, and he was right to delete it. I understand what he's trying to say, which is a point I don't agree with, but he was trying to say that he's trying to draw some comparison and say, well, at least after the Holocaust, the Germans were shamed out, or the Nazis were prosecuted and shamed and blah, blah, blah. And now in his view, the perpetrators of this genocide against Gaza are the Israeli government and nothing's going to happen to them. I have been pretty vocal in my criticism of what the Israeli government has done. I think whether you classify it as a genocide or not is a bit beside the point. I would not classify it that way. They were launching a war against a terrorist group. Now, I think far, far, far too many innocent people died in the prosecution of this war against Hamas. I think that elements of the government have in their lack of concern for civilian life, have certainly made it seem as if their goal was to wipe out all living people in Palestine. It was very bad. It's kind of beyond the point how you classify it. You should not, there's just no need to start going, it's worse than the Holocaust, or it's worse in this. The Holocaust was the deliberate elimination of the Jewish people, 6 million of whom perished in camps, in death camps. There is no comparison to that. Other things can be very bad without being that bad, but it doesn't matter. Bad things are bad, and we don't need to say, this is worse, this is worse. The Holocaust was horrible, and it's the evil of it, the evil that motivated it, should not be understated by anyone. And also, it is wrong to kill civilians, to starve civilians, to bomb and to level a strip just because there's a terrorist group there. So that point did not come across in the tweet, and he was right to delete it, in my view.
I agree. I think, and Mehdi Hasan is motivated in a little bit of a different way than most other people, because what seems to be the writing on the wall is that he left his job at MSNBC because he felt a little bit silenced, and in particular in relation to this story and how to report on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Now, like you said, this started with a terror attack. 1,200 people were killed, and there was an actual and afforded right to respond and retaliate when somebody attacks your country or another part of the world attacks your country. But I think that when people started to watch this play out over 2 years and saw 67,000 people that were mostly civilians, some women and children killed, that were innocent, and hospitals get bombed, and all because, yes, Hamas did have tunnels underneath some of these places, but in some instances they didn't. Well, reporting that was able to access those areas didn't find these claims to be true. Right. So we were just going off of the word of Benjamin Netanyahu, and so it became to the point that the UN started calling it a genocide. And so I think now that we're peeling back the layers on all of this, a lot of the conversation has been about these hostages returning home, which is beautiful to see when you watch everybody reunite with their families, and also the sadness of the people that have hostages that are returning home deceased. And then on the other side of that page, and then the same conversation should be the rubble and destruction that Palestinian people are going home to, and the lack of acknowledgement that innocent people were deeply affected. 67,000 of them and their families that cared about them were deeply affected by what the UN describes as a genocide. And so what do we do here and have them consider it in the conversation, excluding Hamas? Because a lot of people, rightfully so, feel like Hamas should not be part of the conversation of what they want. And I'm one of those people. But when you talk about Palestinians and what they want and humanizing them, we have to remember that all these people had families and have no homes to go back to. And as they continue to rebuild, it's a situation where we're not even in the conversation on the daily news. There's a lot of conversation about, wow, this is a beautiful day and why Trump should win the Nobel Peace Prize and because he brought these hostages home. And that's also good, but there also needs to be consideration for Palestinian people and how they reckon with this horrific tragedy for the people that weren't involved in any terrorism, that were just civilians, that lives got completely sabotaged and destroyed. And I think Mehdi Hasan, like many people, probably feel very personal about that because he doesn't want them to get excluded from the conversation, which you see, they're not mostly the headlines in this case. It's mostly just about the one side of it. But there are innocent people that hopefully the world will come together to help rebuild.
Well, and hundreds of them are being released. As part, it was not just as part of the hostage deal. You know, the 20 hostages, the Israeli hostages being held by Hamas were released, and Israel released hundreds of people that it was holding.
Without charge, though. Yeah,
they were holding. Yeah. Yes, it had not charged them. I believe they have also released some people who were believed by the Israeli government to be involved in crime as well. I wonder what kind of incentives that creates for Israel moving forward. If it's going to just...
And it's also hard, Rob, because there's conversations...
Palestinians that would not be a good thing.
That I was telling you about yesterday with Israel Katz, who's the defense minister of Israel, saying they're only blown up 1/3 of the tunnels, and he wants to go in and blow up the rest of them, which will cause even more destruction after this second phase of this peace plan that President Trump is putting through is instituted. And so just the fact that that's a dialogue happening is concerning to people, probably like Mehdi Hasan, that's like, no more destruction, no more death. Consider the people here and not just the agenda of how to get rid of Hamas. How do you get rid of Hamas without killing any more innocent people? 67,000 is enough. And I think that has to be on the table as President Trump goes to meet with leaders in in Egypt, and everybody on this board of the next phase of Gaza. There has to be a consideration for the people that had livelihoods. They have to be seen as human beings that live there, these children, all these images that we saw, no matter how dramatized the free press wants to act like they were, people saw this with their own eyes. And there has to be a conversation about how to rectify and help people rebuild their lives over there. At the same time, have the conversation about how Israeli people can be whole again and reconnected with their loved ones, and the people that lost loved ones can be whole again.
Indeed.
Saturday Night Live taking aim at Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem in last week's episode. We'll take a look at that when we come back.